leaders who have stood and led, bringing together and coalescing conservatives here in Iowa and all across the country. You want to know what scares the Washington cartel? Actually, not remotely. I don't scare them in the tiniest bit. What scares them is you. What scares them is that the old Reagan coalition is coming back together of conservatives.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the Malzberg panel, we welcome in Ford O'Connell, Republican strategist and political analyst, and in studio, Rick Ungar, senior political contributor with Forbes.com and co-host of Steele Ungar on SiriusXM. All right, let me start with the Republican on the panel, since we just heard from Ted Cruz. Ford, of course, this is something Cruz needed. If he lost to Trump, it would have been over because the next two would have gone to Trump. So why do you think this happened? Was it because Trump missed the debate? Was it because Trump, was saying I could work with Nancy Pelosi and I like Harry Reid and I like Chuck Schumer? Was it because some of the lesser candidates' supporters might have felt, Carson can't win, this one can't win, I'm going to vote for Cruz to stop Trump? What do you think happened?
Well, let me say the first thing. I tip my hat to Ted Cruz, but he pretty much had to win Iowa because the landscape was in his favor, 62% evangelical, and his campaign was built for a ground game given that Iowa was in a caucus format. There's a myriad of reasons that Trump underperformed, I think most of which is, he did not put in real retail politicking and field operations, and if you want to win in a caucus, guess what? You're going to have to put the time in. That said, though, 45,000 votes in Iowa for Donald Trump is nothing to sneeze at. Yeah. His voters are real. The question is, can he channel it?
Right. That was the second most votes that anybody ever got in Iowa. Just unfortunate for Trump that Cruz got the most votes ever in Iowa.
Look, I think 85% of the answer is Ted Cruz had an extraordinary, and underline the word extraordinary, field operation up there. Phenomenal technology being used. They knew every single person, where they needed to go and how to get them there. That's 85%. The other 15% is what Ford just said, which is this is retail politics in that kind of a state. And it's great to do these big events. It gets you great national publicity. It's exciting. You got thousands of people. But in Iowa, not unlike New Hampshire, they want to meet you face to face. They want you in their diners. They want you in their living rooms.
He didn't do that.
And he didn't do that.
All right. And so moving forward, Ford, what happens in South Carolina? Let's leave Rubio out of this for a second, unless you think Rubio could win. Does Trump, who was way ahead in those polls, does this change that momentum? Does this change the outcome in New Hampshire?
Well, absolutely. Look, right now, Donald Trump is the favorite in New Hampshire, but I have to tell you, it is a must-win for Donald Trump because he did have his air of inevitability balloon burst on him because of Iowa. And if Trump doesn't win in New Hampshire, guess what? We may see the end of the Trump train.
That's true. And, of course, Rick, I don't think that Ford's implying that it would be Cruz in New Hampshire. Right. Do you, Rick, believe that Marco Rubio could ride a wave into New Hampshire, win, and then knock Trump out?
No. I really don't. It's always a mistake to make a comparison between Iowa and New Hampshire. Completely, totally different, long history of going in very different directions. I think, if you had to bet money, Donald Trump is still the odds-on favorite to win both New Hampshire and South Carolina, which means he's right back on track.
Let me say one thing, Rick. Here's the problem for Marco Rubio. We have a 4-car pileup for second place, and what Marco Rubio has to do if he wants to finish second or even try to upend the Trump train is that he has to convince Kasich, Christie, and Bush voters that he's better for New Hampshire than they are.
Which he might be able to do, in some large measure. I think that's the rocket fuel, as I referred to it last night, that Marco Rubio gets. He's put himself in a better position to finish second, but it doesn't knock out Trump. I think Trump still gets that first place he needs.
All right. And in South Carolina, we should point out Tim Scott endorsing Marco Rubio, which might go a long way, depending on what happens in New Hampshire, towards enhancing Rubio's chances down in South Carolina. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Rubio, but we'll also talk about Hillary and Bernie, the coin flip woman winner. 6 times in a row she won a coin flip. The odds of that, 1.2%.